In the swamplands of Louisiana, where the mist clings to the bayou like a forgotten memory, there's a story few dare to whisper. It's a tale of isolation, paranoia, and the unraveling of one man's mind. A man haunted not by ghosts or spirits, but by his own delusions. His descent was slow, almost imperceptible, until the line between reality and nightmare was blurred beyond repair. In the deep corners of the state, far from the bustling cities, lies a mystery that leaves even the most rational minds questioning what's real and what's imagined. Today, we dive into the chilling case of Joseph Durand, a Louisiana native whose grip on sanity slipped through his fingers like water through the cracks of a sinking boat. Joseph Durand was just an ordinary man. At least that's how his neighbors would have described him. Quiet, reserved, and often found by the water's edge fishing or lost in thought. In a small town where everyone knows everyone, Joseph was never a person who stood out. Not until he started claiming that something was watching him. It began with small things. The feeling of being followed, hearing his name whispered on the wind, or seeing shadows out of the corner of his eye. To those around him, it was nothing. The bayou plays tricks on you, everyone knows that. But to Joseph, it wasn't just the wind or the swamp. It was something more. As days passed, Joseph's behavior became increasingly erratic. He would disappear for hours into the woods, returning with stories of strange figures lurking in the trees, staring at him with hollow eyes. His friends, once patient with his tales, grew distant, dismissing his stories as wild imaginations. But to Joseph, these figures weren't imaginary. They were real, and they were getting closer. The local sheriff, Bill Tanner, would later recall his first encounter with Joseph's newfound paranoia. One cold evening, Joseph barged into the sheriff's office, wild-eyed and trembling. "They're watching me," he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. When Sheriff Tanner asked him who they were, Joseph's response was chilling. "I don't know, but they want me." At first, the sheriff thought it was just the ramblings of a man who'd spent too much time alone in the bayou. But Joseph's claims became more outlandish with time. He spoke of secret government experiments, of invisible creatures hiding in plain sight, and even of neighbors who had been replaced by imposters. No one was safe in Joseph's world, not even himself. As weeks turned into months, Joseph's paranoia spiraled out of control. His house became a fortress, with windows boarded up and security cameras installed at every corner. The locals whispered about the crazy Durand who had lost his mind. But for Joseph, it wasn't madness, it was survival. And then came the night of November 12th. It was a cold, moonless night, the kind where even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Joseph called the sheriff again, but this time, his voice was frantic. "They've broken in," he screamed into the phone. "I can hear them crawling inside my walls." When Sheriff Tanner and his deputies arrived at Joseph's home, they found him standing in the middle of his living room, clutching a rifle, his eyes darting wildly around the room. He pointed to the walls, insisting that they were inside, that he could hear their voices whispering, taunting him. But when the deputies searched the house, there was nothing. No sign of a break-in, no hidden figures, only Joseph's shattered mind. In the following days, Joseph vanished. His house was found abandoned, his truck still parked outside, and his rifle lying on the front porch. The locals believed he'd fled into the swamp, running from the phantoms of his own creation. Despite a search party combing the bayou for weeks, no trace of Joseph Durand was ever found. To this day, the disappearance of Joseph Durand remains one of Louisiana's most haunting mysteries. Some believe that Joseph succumbed to the elements, lost in the swamp he'd known so well. Others think that his paranoia finally drove him to take his own life, his body swallowed by the unforgiving wilderness. But there are those who whisper a different theory, one that suggests Joseph wasn't imagining things after all. The conspiracy theorists argue that Joseph stumbled upon something far more sinister. They claim that the government, or some shadowy organization, was indeed conducting experiments in the area, and that Joseph was simply a man who saw too much. They point to strange lights seen in the sky on the night of his disappearance, and odd military vehicles spotted near the swamp days before he vanished. Could Joseph have been a victim of some twisted conspiracy? Or was it all just the product of a mind consumed by delusion? Joseph Durand's case is a tragic reminder of how fragile the human mind can be. Whether it was the isolation of the Louisiana Bayou, the weight of untold fears, or something far more mysterious, we may never know. But his story lingers, like the fog that clings to the swamp in the early morning light, refusing to lift. A man lost to his own madness, or perhaps to something else entirely. Sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones that live inside us, and sometimes they're not. Thank you for joining me in unraveling the mystery of Joseph Durand. If you enjoyed this chilling tale, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that walk the fine line between reality and nightmare. And remember, sometimes the truth is far stranger than fiction.